We're live.
Okay.
I'd like to call the meeting in order. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance to the flag.
Okay.
Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everybody for attending our exciting budget meeting. And we'll start with a roll call.
Counselor Whitfield. Counselor Morocco. Counselor Petropoulos.
Here.
Counselor Gilat.
Here.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Here.
Counselor Peeler. Counselor Lavin.
Here.
Counselor Brennan.
Here.
Mayor Valentino.
Here. Okay, I'm just double checking because I had two agendas in front of me. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk more about our 2026 budget. It's an ongoing discussion. And tonight we're going to focus more on recreation, firing, and some administration. And at this point, I sent out to council some of my intentions with making some motions moving forward, just to kind of set the story straight. I want to hear as much as I can about the budget. I want to get past our first regular council meeting, and I will start making motions next Tuesday when we meet again, just to let everybody know. City manager.
All right, so you have a few questions before you, and as we mentioned, tonight's recreation, fire, and some administration. So with that being said, just an overview of how this budget process is working. This is the second of 3 meetings that we set aside for specific topic areas. The next meeting will be next Tuesday at 6 p.m., and the focus of that meeting will be police, economic development, administration. We also have meetings scheduled on the 14th, 21st, and 28th as needed. You don't have to use them all. You can use them all. And ultimately, you have to be able to pass the vote on your budget with all changes by October 31st. Then the recommended, if you can't do that, the recommended budget would become the September 9th budget. At any time, members of council can decide to put forth a motion to change the recommended budget. The mayor just shared his intention to wait until after the 3 first meetings. It's a regular motion, so a motion comes forward, it needs a second, it needs the entire voting process. If that motion fails, a change is not made to the recommended budget. If it passes, the change is made to the recommended budget. However, you have to adopt all of those recommendations as the adopted budget. So really, it's twice that you're voting on all of those changes. So that's just the process, so everyone is clear on it. The final recommendation from council is for council to adopt the recommended budgets. And remember, you're not voting on one budget, you're voting on 3. So you're voting on a water budget, a sewer budget, and the general fund budget. And again, that recommendation follows your normal voting process. With that, there was some questions that came in about forecasting and how we forecast. And so I'm gonna, do you want to hand these ones out? Let me keep one though. So there's a lot of different ways to do forecasting and analysis on budgets. And what I'm handing out, or Adam's handing out to you, is what's called compound annual growth rate forecasting. And what that looks at is 10 years trends, and then we forecast 5 years after those 10 years trends. So we review historical data, acknowledging that some years you may buy a large piece of equipment or have a major, we can share that with the audience as well.
Yeah, please. And I was actually going to add to that, is this going to be available for the public?
Yep, all of our handouts are available the day after, and all the answers to the questions by the end of the day tomorrow will all be available again. And all of last week's information is also available.
Thank you very much.
Nicole would like one as well.
You're just going to make you get on.
So what this model is what is called CAGR. It shows a smoothed out rate. It doesn't take on high swings of things. You know, it also includes the pandemic in there. There were some swings there. Here are some pros and cons of CAGR. It does smooth out those fluctuations. It should be easier to understand. It will help us forecast future budgets. It's useful for comparing funds, departments, cities, and looking long-term. Some of the cons, you don't see that year-to-year volatility. It assumes growth is steady, which always isn't true. It doesn't explain, it just shows numbers. And it's sensitive to unusually high or low start and end points. Why we use this is it gives you a snapshot of the next 5 years. And so if you were to look at the general fund CAGR, it comes out to be just about 2% per year of growth. When you look from 2016 to 2026, you know, some years were a little higher, some are a little lower. It smooths it out into that 2%. There is a formula where you do 1 over the number of years. I can provide that formula. I had it on here and it cluttered things up, but I can always provide that later. If you were to use this by 2031, you would look at a total general fund budget of $24,790,000. And your 2016 budget started at around 18 million. For your water fund CAGR, it's at about 1% per year, and you can see how that builds up over time. And sewer fund is 1.2% per year. This just shows you one way to forecast. There's a lot of different ways. As the comptroller's mentioned in his updates, we've started doing more forecasting and are looking to incorporate 5-year budgeting strategies further. Because while CAGR is a trend, we also can start to acknowledge, you know, if we purchased 7 vehicles this year, we know that probably in 5 to 7 years you're going to need to replace 7 vehicles again or reduce vehicle use or something else. So this is just one way to do it. It's the one that, after looking at it, makes the most sense for a city long term. And I'm happy to take any questions about the process or forecasting of future years of budget before we move on.
Councilor Petropoulos.
Yes, I guess this is just a basic question, but how does the rate of inflation and/or other fluctuations figure in? For example, how much did 18 million buy in 2016 versus what? You're shaking your head.
So this doesn't assume any of that. This just takes your previous 10 years and the growth you've seen in the previous 10 years and calculates the standard percentage of growth over that time. It doesn't take your actual costs. It takes into account how we're managing the finances as the
Gotcha.
city.
Okay, that works.
And what we're looking at is expenditures, correct? So, and it's nice to see some level loading or flattening of expenditures, because you know that there is, as Councilor Petropoulos might have been going to, is there's going to be increases in the cost of living and cost of expense of any materials we purchase or have to expend on. It doesn't, and it's probably almost impossible to reflect this against revenues.
So it's your total budget. So it's what we've brought in, your actual expenditures revenue. It's your balanced budget from 2016 to 2025, projected 2026 of what we're budgeting for, and then this is the growth rate. So this is what your total, what you would be projecting for your total.
Thank you. Looks like
Okay.
you're good.
I'm going to move on to the next one, which I'll let Adam talk through about the breakdown of all rent, insurance, and upkeep of fire facilities. We don't care about that.
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, so the question came in about rent, insurance, upkeep of fire facilities not owned by the city. There's 2 of those. There's the Genesee Street Fire Station and the Geneva Street Fire Station. So for the Genesee Street Station, the rent for 2026 is just over $6,000. And the rent for the Geneva Street Station is $22,510 for 2026. Those can be found on page 46 of the budget book. The upkeep and maintenance can be found on page 70 of the budget book, and that we budgeted $47,000 for 2026, and what that includes is kind of what you would refer to more as capital projects plus the upkeep and maintenance. So it's the maintenance of, you know, a door breaks or things that can go wrong in a building. And then on top of that, in 2026, we've budgeted for the replacement of the bay doors on the Genesee Street Station. So that's a good chunk of that, 47,000 comes from that. And then as far as insurance goes, they're not city-owned buildings, so we have insured the everything inside of it. And the way our insurance policy works is umbrella policy, so it doesn't break it out based on individual locations or individual items. It's just one lump sum broken out by fund. That's the only way that it's broken out. So I don't have a specific number for the fire station insurance is this much, the other one is this much. It falls under our umbrella policy. I can answer any questions on that.
Counselor?
Adam, I should know this, but who's the landlord, and what about repairs and stuff like that? Does that fall back on the city? Like
Yeah.
leaky roofs or
Yep.
that kind of situation?
Yep, so repairs like that fall back to the city as the tenant. I can't think of the proper name for the landlord. Do you have it, Del?
I think that's correct.
Yeah. I think
It was
it's the
originally Geneva Housing
Authority.
Authority, and then they broke off into subsidiaries, FLCDC, and I think it's under a different name now, but
Yeah.
That's the Genesee Street property?
correct.
Yes.
And the Geneva Street property?
It's owned by the Hydrant Hose Company.
Thank
Yep.
you.
And both of those, we have to take care of all repairs. Does that include, or no?
Yeah, so, I mean, I wouldn't say all repairs, but as far as your day-to-day, absolutely, those are our responsibility. I think if there were, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's a little different on each building. So hydrant hose, which I just wrote hydrant house. Hydrant hose, we cost share on some of those responsibilities, and certain things we take on and certain other responsibilities we don't. We can share those lease agreements with you as well, so you can see the contract there. Geneva Housing Authority, we manage those properties, repairs.
So I'm sorry, but
Counselor?
the lease payments that are made to Hydrant Hose, I guess, and the others, what becomes of that money? How is that used, and is that part of our audit?
No, those are it's not city funding. The lease payments we give to them doesn't become part of us.
Right.
They're not us, they're not our department.
But you guys are you individual nonprofits?
When you say you guys, I'm not sure who you're referring to.
The Hydrant Hose and the different fire
Yeah,
companies.
the Hydrant Hose is a separate organization that the city contracts with.
And you're legally nonprofits?
They are, I believe, they're a 501c3, correct?
Continue, please.
Okay, so the next question that we had was to get an estimate of savings for 2026 if we delayed new fire truck purchase for a year, basically the upkeep versus the purchase cost. And there would be no savings in 2026 because when you borrow and you do for your capital plan, you typically don't make any payments in the first year that you borrow. So we wouldn't have any savings in 2026. We would see a potential savings after that. We have in 2025 about 15,000 has been spent on maintenance for that particular truck that we're looking to replace. And again, payments on the new debt would begin in 2027. There's also quite a long lead time on the construction or creation, I guess, of a fire truck. I just talked to the chief before this meeting. He said about 3 years. So even when it's in the capital plan and maybe borrowed for or in production, we're still incurring those upkeep costs for another 2 to 3 years.
But you weren't borrowing for that.
What's that?
Most of that was coming out of CBGD money, right?
Potentially, yeah. If we're successful in the grant, yeah.
So the question I have is,
Microphone, Counselor, please. Microphone.
Sorry about that. So the, yeah,
Can you talk over the sirens?
So bottom line is, since we know fire trucks are going to go way up and up and up, is that going to offset any savings by delaying it, or are we just, spinning wheels and we're going to have to pay more down the line?
Yeah, I can step in. I don't believe that the cost of fire trucks is going to go down anytime soon. They've 3x'd over the past 10 years. And unless Congress can do something to stifle these manufacturers, we're going to continue to see a steep rise in costs.
So, Chief, what you're saying is that the longer we delay, the less savings we actually have by the time it is time to replace the apparatus, correct?
Correct. For instance, just an example, in 2012, we paid $477,000 for the apparatus that we're looking at today for $1.2 million.
Who's the manufacturer of the truck you're looking at now, please?
Most likely, it'll go out to bid, but most likely we would try to stick with Pierce Manufacturing, unless the bids come in substantially less.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, all of our equipment has to go out to bid. So while we may get projection pricing, we have to do a bid process for this large equipment.
I'm sorry to ask, but I did notice at the parade that there's a lot of companies, a lot of other municipalities use Freightliner trucks with different manufacturers of the actual equipment. I was just curious. I know I've asked you this before, Chief, and I know that Pierce makes terrific machines and that they also have a good service network, and I guess in this area of New York State. But I just wonder, if we're going to hope that we are successful in a grant, what if we fail? This same truck is still going to decline. Do we have like a bailout option, like buying a Freightliner truck? Would it be, I don't know, would it be a $700,000 truck instead? I don't know.
No. So the estimates that we get in are for a general truck, Freightliner, Pierce, whatever.
Okay.
It's going to cost approximately $1.2 million for this truck and what it can do.
Okay.
If the grant, and that's the only piece that, and Chief, please chime in, but if the grant were not to be, we were not to be successful in the grant, this is part of the capital program, so you would bond for that. And at that point, you would make the decision as council to either purchase this equipment at the total bond cost or another decision to not purchase that equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We are cautiously hopeful on the grant, but I don't think we should rely on that. I think the backup plan would be bonding for it. And like the city manager said, our pricing, we will gather prices from all the top 5 manufacturers, anybody who's competitive. If we use the price of $1.2 million, because that was our last fire truck purchase, and they already had a bid for us without having to go through the whole process of rebidding, which it takes a few months to spec out a fire apparatus. So we use that pricing. We confirmed it with 3 of the top manufacturers, and they're in that same 1.1 to 1.2 range.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Is there any timetable on when we'll hear about the grant, one way or the other?
The funds are available until expired, is my understanding. We are waiting on 1 or 2 more letters of support and some background information, and that grant full application will go through. We've received letters of support from local politicians, from the Geneva Housing Authority, and we're still waiting on 2 more letters of support.
And the grant application process is a 2-phase process. So we submitted the initial application, received the pre-approval, and now can move on to the final approval, which we're working through right now.
Counselor?
Thank you. If it was discussed, excuse me, but do we have a range of the bond rates if we have to do Plan B?
We won't know that until we go out for the bond. They fluctuate depending on when you go.
Right, so that's why, is there a range? Right now, like, is there any kind of like, what's the going rate?
Yeah, I mean, the last one I think that we had was 3.75%.
Okay.
So, I mean, we have a
I
good
understand.
bond rating, but yeah, depending on where the rates go.
I wasn't sure if we already had a preferred lender that's given us a kind of a number.
No, we have to basically bid those out as well.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, keep moving.
Yes, one question.
Oh, wait, Counselor Grimaldi.
It's just for the chief. Okay, so now
Microphone.
we're buying a new truck. Now, we know a frontline truck is only good for about 15 years. Then they go into reserve. So the truck we're replacing is a reserve truck. Is this new truck, what's it gonna replace, and how do we move our trucks down the line? You know what I'm saying?
Great question. Yes. Just for clarification, we have not stated which truck we're replacing. We do have a replacement schedule, and we are going to take the oldest engine and replace it and move other apparatus into that reserve status. The oldest engine we have that is in question here is engine 11. That engine is currently in a reserve status because it's over 20 years old.
Okay,
We-
because the truck really is only good for 25 years.
Correct. Maximum life, that's in a reserve status. So from 15 to 25, it's not supposed to be a frontline apparatus.
Yeah.
So our frontline apparatus, which we have 4 of, are good for 15 years, and then they're supposed to go into a reserve status for the next 5 to 10, depending on their serviceability.
Yeah,
Again, so
how
you-
much maintenance?
You go from, a standard to what is actually feasible and try to find the healthy balance. And just for reference, over the next 3 years, or next 5 years, we're supposed to be replacing 3 apparatus. So this is a problem that's not gonna go away if we keep on, kicking the can down the road, so to speak.
Chief, this is probably off the straight budget, but are you familiar with the town's fire operations?
I am.
Or do they keep to that same schedule for their trucks and everything?
They do. They just, 2 of the 3 town companies have replaced engines on the same standard.
That's a target where a truck run by your guys, that right there are just minutes away from any place they'd use them.
Mhm.
And it cries out for shared pain.
Correct, but when you increase your volume or your land mass, you also increase how much for frontline apparatus you have to carry. So one engine is not good for 27 square miles, so to speak. You can't share one piece of apparatus to cover the same distance. So if you take over, let's say we use that apparatus that they have, you have to also increase your standard, right? So one apparatus, for example, is good for X. You can't use one apparatus for X and Y.
Continue.
I was gonna say, I think that ends our fire department questions, so unless there's other fire department questions, I'm gonna let the chief, go if you
Kicking me out?
You can stay
Yeah,
if
get out of
you'd
my
like.
parking spot, will you?
You can stay if you'd like, but, that does conclude that. We're gonna move on.
Wait,
Just one more.
Counselor,
One more, Chief. Just hit that again. Last your statement. Just hit.
Yeah,
last statement,
I'm
hit that
probably
again.
not explaining it great. So the standard for frontline apparatus is by population. So City of Geneva, 13,000 residents, we need so much frontline apparatus, so many responding vehicles for our demographics. If you expand our demographics to cover the town, you have to add more frontline apparatus. Does that make sense?
You're covering more territory.
Correct, more territory, more people, distance to responses. So if you add that population growth by sharing that service, you have to add the apparatus, personnel, equipment, training, et cetera. You can't just say, we're gonna cover your district, because if that's the case, why don't we just cover Ontario County?
that is the nightmare right now that is going on over in Victor,
Correct?
where they have a dissolution of a fire department and they have some major issues. We just talked with the county manager about this, and they have an 18-month interim plan, but long-term, they have some major issues there.
They do. Today's their last day in service.
We are so fortunate to have our volunteer fire department.
We are
And
very
thank you
fortunate.
very much.
And you'll see something next week from the city of Canandaigua as well on the same topics that we're talking here in our city, so you should, that'll be a good read for everybody. I thank everybody for their time, and if you have any more budget questions, feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Chief.
I'm gonna move over to evaluation, reevaluation. So in 2026, we are looking at a 100% citywide revaluation. This is something that municipalities are encouraged to conduct a valuation of property to keep assessments at 100% of market value. The process, I want to be clear, does not raise the tax levy. That's set by city council during the budget process, but it does make sure, or is created to make sure that everyone's paying a fair share based on the property that they own and the values of their homes. Annual revaluations are meant to keep all your assessments equitable, accurate, prevent sudden spikes. When you wait several years to do a reval, you may see 20-30% spikes. By doing it regularly and keeping checks on that, by staying current, we maintain that fairness across neighborhoods, and we try to avoid placing unfair burdens on one taxpayer and not another while under-assessing or over-assessing. So current 2026 reassessment process, so it occurs in 25 and 2026, would impact 2027 values. It's underway right now. The residential portion is actively being reviewed. As of this week, total residential assessments have increased by approximately $105 million. This number is going to continue to shift as the rule becomes refined. It's not finalized until August of next year, when it will be approved by New York State. How do revals work? We look at property sales, what's going on in the market, comparable values in the city of Geneva. The commercial valuation work has not even started yet for 2026. We're awaiting the updated valuation factor file that's prepared at the county level, and then it comes over. Once those factors are provided, then the assessor begins calculating all of the commercial impacts and developing a distributional estimate across all the property classes and neighborhoods. It's way too early to project the final final levy share changes, but it's important. So the process really is required to reflect the true market value. There's no statutory safeguards that limit increases, but there is methodology that has to be consistent across assessors. As we go through this, property owners will receive individualized notices again. They'll receive a letter with their new assessed value, an explanation of the process. Our website already includes, but they'll continue to push out the FAQs, the explainer materials, the presentations we've provided. We'll record those again as needed. And then, of course, the assessor's office is available to meet directly with property owners to answer all the questions, review the data. And again, the goal is to ensure that there's transparency. We can reduce confusion or misinformation by putting out as much information as possible. Assessments and how they impact taxes often get confused. And it's very interesting to kind of go through these bullets with an assessor on council, but I think it gives you kind of an overview of why we're doing a reval. As we looked at where we're at, we're below where we want to be. We want to get closer to that 100%, so we're not going from a spike of 70 to 100 again.
There's also state implications if we fall behind?
There are. The state can provide different implications. I think the biggest piece is just that sudden spike. That's more important in some ways, in my opinion, than those implications. Pat probably has different thoughts on that, but.
Yes. Can I talk?
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Close to the mic.
You want to try to stay close to 100%, because your equalization rate plays into the apportionment of taxes. So city taxes, no big deal. School taxes, county taxes, bigger deal. So what you're doing essentially by letting your equalization rate go down, is you're letting the state come in and say your town is worth, I don't know, what are we at now, 92 or something like that? So they're gonna automatically put 8% extra on our roll when they apportion taxes for the county and the school. So we're gonna, if everybody else is at 100 and you go down, you're gonna pick up a bigger portion. And I mean, I've seen where it's changed the rate $1, 1,000, which is a pretty big hit to your taxpayer. So you try not to do that. The other thing is every resident gets a star. The star is adjusted by the equalization rate. So by going down to 92, the first year you don't notice, they don't really drop it. The second year they drop it 8%. So that's why you'll see from year to year sometimes your star exemption is going down and going down, and you're getting even though the school bill's going up, you're going down, so you're paying that extra little hit. And as long as you're going up the same as everybody else, you're not seeing any change in your taxes. Like, you know, Amy was saying, we said what the taxable is here. That's all that matters. As long as your house stays on the even keel with everybody else, your taxes are gonna be the same. What comes in sometimes is if your neighborhood was maybe lower end before and now it's become popular and, you know, everybody else is going up, you know, I would think that by the time they get done with this, everybody will be going up 35–40% maybe. Some, yeah, I would think somewhere in that neighborhood maybe. Looking at the sales, we, you know, it may be less, I don't do the work here anymore, but just knowing what sales I watch. And as long as you're going up the same as everybody else, your taxes stay the same. If you were low before, you're gonna go up more. And a lot of times, I try to tell people when they come after the assessor to get their assessment lowered, and it's fine for those couple years, but then the next time, you know, you're going up more than everybody else because the assessor had everybody level before and you're maybe on the low end. And assessments, you know, when you're doing assessments are not an exact item. There's a range. So if you're at the bottom of the range, one assessment, and then 3 years later, you're coming through to do it again, and all of a sudden your neighborhood's a little hotter and now you're at the top, you see a bigger jump and now your taxes are higher. So,
Right. And to Pat's point, on page 37 in the assessor's department, you can see some of the key metrics. So in 2023, our equalization rate was at 78%. So to his point, if your property value jumped 20% because it was valued more, plus we had to do that equalization, you're not only jumping the 20%, you're jumping from 78 to 100% plus the 20% on top of that. So that's a big swing.
Yeah.
If we keep closer, and the goal here you can see under the work projects is to keep at a 90 to 100% range, you're not getting that huge, big swing. You're just getting the actual swing of what your property is now valued at.
yeah,
And what we spend.
Spending is important.
yeah, but spending doesn't play into assessments at
No.
all.
Well, and not to assessment, but to the taxpayers.
Tax
effect.
levy, your council spending is, yes,
That's,
but that's separate. We're talking the value of the properties. Has nothing to do with what the elected officials in each of these municipalities do.
Would have went up either way. If you increase the budget, it's gonna increase the taxes, and that's,
right.
Yep.
there's no way around that.
Yep.
So, number 5.
All right, on to the next. Housing, yes, what local resources are budgeted for housing rehab and home ownership? The 2026 budget does not include any city-funded resources for that. Home ownership is identified as a priority in the comprehensive plan and a long-term community goal. It has not been prioritized in local funding in many budget cycles. As a note to that, there is an added layer of complexity to dedicating local city funds to homeownership assistance. Under New York State's constitutional gifts and loan prohibitions, local municipalities are restricted from using local funds to directly subsidize or gift private individuals. That means programs such as down payment assistance or direct grants to homeowners, we can't use local funds to do that. You can use state and federal funding to do that. You can't use local funds. And historically, we have partnered with others to do that. Back, and some of you remember, Office of Neighborhood Initiatives had grant funding that we could utilize to do that. We continue to partner with Wayne Finger Lakes Community Action. They've come to council before to talk about some of their rehab programs. Habitat for Humanity also has rehab programs. We partner with those partners to provide those services, but there is not any funding in this budget. And when I go to the next question, which is about state and federal housing dollars, There's no state or federal housing dollars put into this budget either. As far as that, we do have a current year housing rehab program that we are using those funds. That's current CDBG funding. The budget does not assume new awards or require local matching for those awards because we've received notice that that program funding probably will not be available in the no budget year.
No questions, we'll move to 7.
All right. How is data tracked using performance and budgetary resources? Do you want to take this one?
Yes, so, the city manager and I and the rest of the staff are committed to developing all of our data collection tools for each department that are linked directly to those strategic goals set by council and the priorities that you all set. Looking at different KPIs to make sure that we have measurable outcomes that we can show this level of effort is producing this level of results, and we want to continue to expand that. I think last time we got together, I talked a little bit about the performance management tool being a potential, budget item that was removed that we would see some ROI on. This is an example of where we would see that, being able to better utilize data to inform our budgetary processes. We are shifting to the use of results-based accountability, or RBA, which helps connect departmental efforts to broader community outcomes. It really asks 3 super, simple but very powerful questions. How much did we do? How well did we do it? And is anyone better off, right? Those are the key things we want to ask ourselves with the services and investments that we make in our communities. For example, in the fire department, a KPI might track response times and emergencies. Using RBA, we would also ask whether faster response times are resulting in improved outcomes for residents, such as, is there reduced property loss or fewer fire-related injuries? Over time, your aim is to kind of develop measures where you can have targets and then, obviously attempt to exceed those targets, and that will be able to inform whether our investments are doing what we hope they will do. Although there are staffing changes that are delaying the planned update of the comp plan that, we've been talking about, we do anticipate fully reviewing in 2026, with the then council, and this will provide us an opportunity to align those performance measures with the strategic goals of that council. The city began tracking departmental metrics in 2023, so we're refining those, expanding that, making sure that we are, utilizing resources that help make that process efficient, that it's not adding, too much additional workload on staff to be able to track, but we're still able to see that the progress that we're making. Takes time implementing data-driven resources anywhere, right? You've got to get used to the systems. You've got to get used to how we define those metrics. What are our data sources? How are we confirming them? How do we go back and make sure what we're saying is accurate? What is the, the evidence that we have to prove that? So we're laying the foundation for that now, to hopefully better inform our future budget cycles as well.
Yeah, Councilor Judd, jump in. Can you go back? I don't know if there's any go-backs. No, you can go back. Yes.
Oh my God, no do-overs, sorry, Pete.
You sure?
Oh my God.
I'm a little confused and concerned, I guess, with the housing situation. The entire council, I believe, agrees with me. I mean, we've talked about it a million times about first-time buyers, about some funding for some incentives for landlords to fix their houses, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So what's our plan? If we can't get the state federal funding, what is our, and it's not in our budget, what's our plan? How are we gonna move forward with this stuff if we're not doing anything?
So we're going to have to do some state and federal advocacy to get more funding in the budget, because you can't use local dollars for a lot of this. There are some things you can do, and we need to start looking at that, but we haven't done those in the past, and I think one of the pieces is defining what that priority goal has been. What is it, that piece you want to move? Housing rehab, depending on what we're looking for, that's why we've done the program that we have right now with home ownership, and we're going to keep trying to do that. Not home ownership, but home repairs. I think that's the big piece, is we have not allocated resources to it, nor can we allocate a lot of local resources to it. We have started getting the state and federal grants in. The state still has some grants that they're continuing with, We'll continue to move towards those, but the federal dollars are where the concern comes from. And I will say, they may reallocate those, and there may be other funding pots. Just at this point in time, the current programs that exist, we've been notified, will likely not exist in the future.
Counselor Peeler, then Counselor Lavin, then Counselor Petrakis.
Thank you. To echo Pete,
You're loud.
Stop spitting.
got to talk to the AV guy. So to echo Pete, homeownership is really important to all of us, especially first-time buyers. It's near and dear to my heart. My first home is here, and I moved here during the heyday of our GNRC, and I think that was a real positive neighborhood draw when wanting to find a neighborhood or move into a neighborhood and seeing all the things that were going on. I'm curious to see some, on paper, some of those measurable outcomes, some of those measurable goals that we can kind of see what our executives have in mind for how we're going to boost homeownership, how we're going to support homeownership as a goal, which means the outcome is getting people in homes that live there, right? So if we can't give them money and funds, which I don't think is the answer, that's my personal constitution. We can't just throw money at that problem. We want people who are going to be able to afford their homes when they come in so that they're sustainable and continue those repairs down the road. That's going to require income, regular income. I'd like to see some real, measurable goals, maybe some kind of rubric where we're doing the peripheral things that support homeownership, like recreation, like neighborhood initiatives. Are we doing the pumpkin roll this year?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Signs are up.
Yep.
All right, very good. I'm a Halloweenie, so I think that's great.
You're gonna volunteer and help?
I'm not. I'm going to be out of town. It's for that weekend. I'm going to be bow hunting, but it's still very. My kids are going to be there with my wife or something else. Maybe we'll get my kids to volunteer. They're full of energy. But I'm hoping to see something structural about homeownership and what we can do to support the neighborhoods.
And I think that ties into actually the next question, which is about the KPIs for homeownership or owner occupants, number of assisted buyers, vacant to owner reactivations. Currently, key performance indicators tied to homeownership have not been identified or funded in the budget. This is a piece of what we need to start tracking. If that is really the council, when you look at your comprehensive plan and then the council priorities that were set, there were, I think, 6 council priorities. It's talking about what is the strategic plan that the group and the vision from council and then from staff of how do we start setting these targets, such as rehab completions, first-time buyers assisted. And when you get into results-based accountability and others, you have 2 types of metrics. You have population metrics, which is the big scale thing. The city can't do it all. We don't have all the resources or the budget on that.
We really shouldn't.
And exactly, we shouldn't. But we do have partners. So what are we seeing? What are our trends? And what do our trends mean? Tomorrow night, as I always do, I'll be giving you your monthly data sheet that shows our population. I think a piece of our population we have to remember is how many are students in our population. What does that mean for the home ownership percentages? Is that a piece of that? How many are seniors that maybe don't want to own a home anymore? And so as we start talking about this, who are we talking on those pieces? So that's your population level. And then you get to your program level of what are we directly impacting with city resources. So how do we balance our priorities, the staff capacity, and what resources are influencing those? This is going to take time to continue to develop. As Taylor mentioned, we jumped into this about 3 years ago into using more data in the budget process. It has been done before, and then it stopped for a while, and we've brought it back. And hopefully between that and long-term planning with a consistent staff support, you'll be able to see more measurable outcomes, and that's kind of the goal of all of this.
Council Lavin.
Just following up on the manager, the 2 biggest things, the biggest thing a city can do for its neighborhoods is to redo its streets and sewers. it instantly raises everything. But in other cities where the spending is a little bit more diverse, the Rochester, for example, does the sidewalks in the winter. It's a contract that's given out, and everybody's sidewalks are done as a public service. Garbage pickup, these are things that are on the shoulders of the homeowners that are taken care of by taxes and other places, and as long as it's even, you can have that effect. But it really, it's why we look at the breadth of our funding and the depth of it and the way we spend it. That gives us the ability to do, I share the same goal that Pete does, which is make it easier. But also you have public-private partnerships that do allow things like the houses that are being done by Habitat for Humanity are definitely right in the ballpark of what we all as a council would like to do. And there are other community funds that could be founded to shepherd with the city. The things you can do and the things that only the community can do to address these things, so.
Yeah, I think all of those things are tied to this. While I say there's not specific funding tied to home ownership or home rehab dollars, you also have staff capacity and funding tied to that. You know,
Right.
do you have those pieces? Some of the GNRC staff were funded with grants and other resources, and those are things that you can continue to look at. Another piece to always look at too is your total, back to the previous question about assessed value. And when we start talking about other municipalities, what the size of the population and what their tax pool looks like, and tax exempt properties, non-tax exempt properties. So all of those are facets of this entire picture.
Council Petropoulos.
You mentioned earlier that there are some things the city obviously cannot do, but you mentioned some things the city might be able to do. Do you have a list of some of those, or can you give me some examples?
Staffing resources to support some of those connections, anything that's not a direct gift. So, and there are ways around the gifting, not around it, but if you're doing something for a total population. So if you were to do a set aside for a certain population that is open to all, you can do that, but you can't say homeowner A versus homeowner B.
So I'm going to jump in there because this is one of my pet peeves of home ownership or starter homes, which I think was key in the 1950s in the city of Geneva. And for me, you mentioned Habitat for Humanity, which is huge. Cook Industries and this council and future councils need to continue to look at that and what available properties in the city of Geneva will attract developers. We have, not a lot, but we have a few tracts of land that will be very interesting to developers if we can put infrastructure. So I've kind of beat on the door of our senators and assemblymen. If we can get state or federal funding for infrastructure to put in roads and water and sewer in undeveloped properties that we still do have in the city of Geneva, it will be huge to attract developers to put in starter homes, which I think kind of adds to this conversation and allows for those affordable starter homes for families to move into the city of Geneva, which is huge for me.
Yeah. I think the last one to go up was right down by the last one to go up was down by you, off of High Street, wasn't it? Those two streets?
Yeah, you know, I said to the city manager today, I said, I think there's one on White Springs going up right now.
Okay.
You turn on Walgreens
In
and
the
it's on the
town?
left-hand side. And no, in the city.
It's on the city side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great
And you
to
have
see.
all that land behind Slauson Lane.
Yep, I don't disagree with that either.
No, it just,
I've got land up by me and
Ridgewood.
Greenbrier Circle, there's land over in Idle, there's plenty of land, well, not plenty, there's enough land, and I'm gonna go back to my other pet peeve, which is when you talk about Cornell Ag,
yeah.
and you talk about the Ag Tech Park, there's a tract of land that is close to the Idlewood Drive,
Mhm.
that if we could obtain that land, you could put 40 or 50 homes there, which would be huge.
And the sewer's back there already.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we're listening to someone who's trying to lobby for Valentino Boulevard over here. As we're,
No,
No,
that's what I'm thinking.
No.
they should have
Val-
done that with Idlewood,
nope.
but they didn't want to.
All right, I'm gonna move on to
We had Idlewood.
number 9 and on to the skating rink. And here, I'll hand it out so you can talk. It's, all right, go for it.
Okay. So, Amy right now is passing out a recreation facility overview. So that is the rink, or the, whatever you want to call it, the rec facility. As of today, I started this analysis from 2018 and went every other year. 26 I have highlighted because that is what's in the current budget. There's a couple things at the bottom in terms of how we've come up with some of these numbers. So we've got those there. The budget itself for the recreation rink is found on page 75 of the budget document. One of the big things that we keep talking about is the chiller and the replacement of that. We currently have, we're seeking quotes for that as we speak. As soon as we know a roundabout number, we'll share that. And it's a number I wouldn't say we're looking forward to knowing what it is, but we really would like to know what it is.
Who are we looking for? Who are you looking at?
What's
What
that?
company are you getting the price from?
I'm not the one doing it. I'm not sure what companies they're looking at.
Okay.
I think it's for the chiller.
Yeah, we'll look at multiple companies. We always do when we get a
Okay.
range.
I have a
And
company,
then,
so
and then before we
Nice
can
to know.
actually purchase that, we have to bid it.
I know. But you have to look at also what kind of refrigeration you're using.
Yep.
Can we make ice this year?
Yes. It's down
It
there
still
right now.
works.
I've been on it twice.
Yeah.
With, on your skates or other parts of your body?
Mostly skates. Mostly skates.
Are you telling me the 2024 revenue and the 2024 expenses are only $1 off?
No. So if you look at under revenues, the tax levy allocation, that's basically the gap. That's how
what they
much
took out.
money was used from tax revenue to basically balance the recreation facility if it were its own enterprise fund, which is something else we've kind of been talking about. So yeah, that's actually must just be a rounding error.
Copy.
Yep. So, again, this includes some of the salary from buildings and grounds, as they help out, as it is a city facility. The last debt we had for the rink was the ice resurfacer. That was paid off in 2021, so we don't currently have any debt there. But there have been some capital costs, dasher boards, and the dasher board project was in 2016, and we just had a repair to those. We did not have to replace them, which was great. So that was a little bit less expensive than we were thinking. And then there's been things, different mechanical issues over the last few years that we've had to take care of. So I have those kind of factored into the capital costs there.
Did I hear rumors you wanted to be a Zamboni driver?
I'm all for it. I spend a lot of time there, and do what you can, I guess.
We pay you by the mile or the hour?
They don't
By
know
the
where-
inch.
Yeah, right.
So, I have a question,
Yes.
and I think this is a great way of presenting this information. And I've, from the past 4 years, since my last reelection, I was on the rec board. And one of the things that was a constant topic was historical spending for recreation, going down year after year after year, with some of our spending reaching, amounts of over $500,000 just 12 years ago. And now our spending is $150,000 less than that. But if you look at these numbers, the expense to the recreation by our taxpayer is minimal. $27,000 a year is
I don't want to cut you off. I just want
No,
to
please do.
make you aware. That's just for the facility.
It's
So-
not recreation in general. This is just the
Correct.
rink.
So there's other
Okay.
recreation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a way we can get a breakdown to what actually our cost versus our revenue is for all of rec? Like how much does rec? Because we can see in plain English that our rec center brings in over $300,000 a
Yeah,
year.
so-
But what's the total cost of all rec
So on
every year? Is it on page 75?
page 70, what did you say, 73?
I'm already there.
73, I believe,
73?
would lay it out. The only thing that wouldn't have would be things that are very specific to that facility. So for example, what do I have in here? Insurance and utility costs. We don't book those to that department. We book that in one line item under miscellaneous. But for this, I broke it out and added up the bills to figure out what that amount was. So it would be kind of a combination of that page and this document.
Counselor Peeler, what you're asking for actually leads into the next question
I
about,
did that on purpose.
yeah, thanks for that, about the future of an enterprise fund. So currently, the rec revenue goes into the general fund. We don't break it out as specific as what you're asking for. So, summer camp expenses, that's in a revenue line, which we can also find, but it's not broken out like this. We started doing this breakout, well, it predates me as the first one, and then we've continued to do this breakout to try to do those expenses. The other thing we do, and starting on page 73, is rec is broken into 3 budgets, a total budget, a summer, and then a winter. As we talk and we started to talk more about this enterprise fund concept, basically what that is, we're in the initial discussions on this. This is something that the comptroller and I started to talk about because we want to be able to show what those revenues and expenses are. And for some purposes, recreation has been seen as something that should pay for itself, not as a benefit to the community that we provide. We have reached out to NICOM to see what models others are using. I do know that there are models out there. The budget discussions really did push us towards thinking about this because we're already trying to do some of it. As far as 2026, we would do an internal feasibility study to look at how would we create this fund? What would that policy look like? One of the pieces that you pointed out, because of how municipal budgets are done, you don't have shortfalls. We can't have shortfalls. We're not built to have a shortfall. You have to use your fund balance to do that shortfall, or your tax levy allocation. And you'll see when we look at the 2026 budget for the rink, there's a tax levy allocation. We're planning that we're going to be using that. So that's something that we have to explore with the enterprise fund concept is how do we shore up that allocation? Is it a transfer from general fund like we do to water and sewer? Are we then billing from one fund to another? So there's still some work to be there. We would, upon completion of our study internally, we would provide council with a proposed fee policy, the governance options menus, our memo, and then really a discussion and direction on moving towards that enterprise fund. There's risks with that, as I just mentioned. Recreation programs rarely operate fully self-sustaining, even with fee adjustments, because as a government, we provide those services to our community, and that's something their taxpayer dollars do. And so it's something we're looking at and want to do as part of 2026 so we can more easily say these are the revenues that go into this fund and these are the expenses on this fund.
So to follow that up, I want it to be clear because one of the few things that this council has been in total agreement on which is great, if not bizarre, is that we all support rec. We really want to see an active community for all ages. And my stance on this, my belief is that we shouldn't be operating rec to always pay for itself. We really shouldn't. And there should always be an expense, and it might be a perk that we're taking in some revenue, but that's not the goal. The goal is to provide recreation and activities and enrichment, not to have it pay for itself. Because then all we're doing is we're going to be treating rec like running a concession stand, and that's really not what it's supposed to be for. That's my belief on that. So I hope that idea transcends my words and goes on to the next council.
Councilor Pachopolis, and then Councilor Lavin.
Here, Bill. Meantime, so we've been talking a lot about rink improvements, options 1 through 3 and all that. that, we're not even there yet, I take it, right? So what we're looking at here is operating the way we've been operating with no, that's
Correct.
gonna be something down the road, or how's that gonna work?
So, the rink improvements and the plans, and Adam mentioned the chiller. There was a question about the cost of a chiller, because that is something that can keep us up awake at night, because we want to make sure that we can continue that. That is not part of any of the budget at this point. It would be a capital expense. It would be something that we'd have to look at. We have submitted a couple of grant applications, looking at those improvements that were part of the design survey. There's still more work, and I think that was part of the design, is that was a very small beginning step. They're only preliminary designs. To get to total, whatever it is, maintaining as is, to, I think the last option was tear down and start over. Not advocating for any of those options. You still need a lot more engineering and design on those.
So, yeah, so replacing the chiller, that's what, the ice maker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We used to play street hockey, so. So that's just basically replacing equipment that needs replacing anyway. So that is a capital expense, but not necessarily part of the whole bigger picture.
No.
So hypothetically, in other words, if we were to tear the whole thing down, I'm not advocating for anything either, but if we were to tear the whole thing down, would that chiller be able to be salvaged, or do we all have to start from scratch? That's,
So in your three models, the tear everything down means start all over on everything, change, and that was based off of, and the designs in that design guide, based off of
Right.
basically redoing it all and building a new facility. I kind of equate it to like football stadiums. You know, you find a new stadium, you tear that other one down and start all over. That would be the extreme. The first phase of that study is what's necessary to keep the rink operating. The second phase was to expand it so you have more options and services, and that you could build some of the partnerships. I think one of the keys of the community is there are lots of recreation options in the city, not just city funded. And how do we continue to grow those partnerships so that there's no wrong door for people to go in to find those services?
so the last thing I want to butt in, so in other words, let's say we're replacing the chiller. Does that tie us to option one only, or can we improve on things even if we do replace the, let's say option two, for example, keeps the chiller and does other infrastructure repairs? Is that, how's that
That's-
look?
That's a bigger question depending on what we're doing. So if we're just replacing a part of the current system, then no, it wouldn't move you towards option two, because option two includes more ventilation, air condition, other things.
Right.
So it may not be building exactly, but that's what we're working with. The firm that we worked with before and current designs will continue to try to do it. I think this question though was just rooted in, if it breaks this year, what's it going to take to keep it going?
Okay.
And again, go back to that design study, which I think did a good job of saying, here are things that you're really taking a chance on year over year, and here are your wish list items. And I think they left some of the wish list items off from having been in that session, but they included some of the bigger items there.
Council Lavin?
Sorry to continue on the theme, but one of the issues with this is that you look at this is all about essentially one sport, one service, hockey, skating. And the challenge to us is that it's like it did with sidewalk replacement, sidewalk maintenance, the garbage pickup. We are not in the business of recreation in the way we were 20 years ago, where you had playground operations, you had softball for people in their 20s and 30s, you had a whole range of things, and those have all disappeared over time because of fiscal issues, and we're left with a recreation department that's 98% skating. That if you look at what they actually deliver without partners in the community and are delivered by the city, we're very, very heavily hockey related. Basketball, which is very popular among particularly the Black and Hispanic community that doesn't have the money, we're not invested in that at all. In fact, the facilities are elsewhere, and there's no money that comes from us. There used to be, and that disappeared as the city's fiscal strictures got tougher. So it's left us in a business, and so the enterprise thinking is sort of like the Canandaigua model, where they have a big skating rink and they rent it out to the people who use it, and they don't spend anything on it. They don't have a city person running the Zamboni, and they don't have part-time workers checking people in and out. It's frankly more expensive to play hockey in Canandaigua as a result of that. And when you look as a community, what is our goal for recreation? It's hockey top heavy now. We have the Hobart element, which is a really good thing for downtown. I am not trying to run it down, but we are out of whack in terms of full range of things. And you hear complaints about that. What do we got for the 22-year-olds who want to play softball the way we used to in the fields of the state park, and organizing that? We don't have the staff that does that, and we don't open up the parks in the summer for the kids anymore. It's all money, but it speaks to taking a hard look at what you're taking a look at to see if there's another way to do this. Keep the rink's going to be there. HWS, one way or the other, is going to run that, paid as they are now, the single biggest payer for the use of that rink. There may be other ways to do it without having to have a full-time Zamboni driver on staff, which is what Mr. Sharman was in running that rink nobly as he did it.
And
So
I will point to the metrics on it. I don't have it in front of me, but like last year it was 301, and I think we're at 303 days of use of that facility. So I do just want to caution that when the turf is down, that facility is also booked a lot. We now have a semi-professional lacrosse team that uses it. We also have youth lacrosse, childcare, or it's not childcare, I shouldn't have said that. I know better. Summer programming, half day, full days. So there are a lot of components, but you're also correct when we talk about recreation staff. We're talking about now 2.5 FTEs that oversee that full-time, and then seasonal staff. And so finding that balance of what recreation is a piece of that. And then just as a reminder, because we are going to give this handout to the community, the handout that we have, that we provided you, is just the recreation facility overview. So that is that facility, 24/7, that full facility operations. And then there's additional funding for some of the recreation. But there needs to be more looking at some of those pieces and those activities and how we move those forward.
Councilor Gilat.
I think moving forward, I mean, we took money out or didn't put money in for any sports teams or any leagues or anything like that. It seems to me that conversation, you brought it up more than once. There's a need for basketball leagues. There's a need for different levels of leagues or people to get involved with.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to start looking at this at a different angle and say, what can we do to enhance more what we're doing? I know, just my son working there, I know that the rec centers use a lot for alt cultures. I mean, they get exposure to ice skating, they get exposure to different sports. I think the fees are pretty minimal. I don't think they're crazy. And I know your passion is basketball.
it's not my passion, it's just my service. I was involved in that service.
Yeah, so I
His
think
sister was better than him, too.
I think maybe we need to look at it differently, and instead of
Yeah.
pushing it away, let's push
Absolutely.
things forward and start, and bring these things back.
Absolutely.
Maybe to get kids out of their bedrooms and stop playing games with them.
I would piggyback on it because I think you're all talking about some really, if it was strictly financial, I think we would dig deep in our pockets and figure it out. Unfortunately, I think a lot of it has to do with participation and the level of participation. Ice hockey and basketball are the two largest entities that draw use into sports programs, all the way up into their 20s. I wish people went to the playgrounds more. Ridgewood is used fairly frequently, but I wish people wanted more softball. I wish people wanted, more swimming, whatever it might have been. It just doesn't seem to be the driver out there. If it was strictly financial, I think we'd find a way to do it.
And I think one of the pieces, and we are spending some time, and as you know, we brought on the assistant city manager, and soon she'll have a partner in crime to help with some of this, is really diving in deep on how we're using our facilities and what we're doing with them. 20 years ago, we probably wouldn't be putting a gaga ball pit in because no one knew what that was, but that is a hot topic.
solid
I still don't know what it is.
Well,
Me
you can
neither.
see it. It's at Richards. But that is the type of movement we're doing. I think the other thing is there's been a lot of changes, and I know, Councilor Lavin, from your past profession, you also know a lot of those changes around regulations, around, you used to be able to have a staffed park attendant that could take care of everyone. Great concept. How you do that, regulatory, is very difficult now. As I caught myself, we do not offer childcare. We offer camp, half day, not full day, no lunch, because there's regulations to all of those words. And I think that's a piece. Often when you talk recreation, one of the big drivers of that is your emotional attachment to what your recreation was when you think of your fond memories. And I know that Taylor and team at the rec center and elsewhere are going to dive into that to figure out what is our best path forward. How do we use that facility? Working on some of these grants that we've talked about, the BRICS grant, making that a community center facility for this section of the community that people can walk to. There's some really great resources already here, and I think there's some great things to partner and build off of. What I'd like to do that is in the most cost-efficient and mindful way, and that's one of the reasons we want to look at this as an enterprise fund, and then how do we maintain those partnerships and grow them to make that happen.
Council Peeler?
Yeah, just on that topic, right now, because of what my kids are involved with in the city, and with the changing landscape of Hobart William Smith, I mean, they're in McDonough Park now, right? That's going to be their home field, and I don't know if there is an opportunity there. Well, strike while the iron's hot, to expand baseball culture, because we're talking about culture. Like when we got let loose in the playgrounds in the 80s, and we're talking about park guards, right? That's what we're talking about, playground leaders. And they were like lifeguards, but instead of being by the pool, they were like teaching people how to make boondoggles and playing kickball, right? But we also had parents that were willing to set us loose in the community. Our parents did not come with us, okay? And I don't know if you see that so much, right? When I was in Little League, when I was a kid, my parents dropped me off, and it was just the coach and the kids, and that's it. Now you go to a Little League practice, and it looks like a family reunion, right? Every single parent is sitting there, right? And that's the cultural change. So I don't know if there's a way we can tap into that cultural change and give something for the parents to do while they're watching their kids recreate. I mean, I'm not saying we should turn it into cocktail hour, but at the same time, it's got to be, there's probably an opportunity there for maybe an enrichment for them.
Absolutely.
A lot of parents don't know how to get involved with their kids' sport. I tell parents all the time, because I'm a baseball coach, you want your kid to play more, you play more, right? You throw the ball around. So I don't know if there's opportunities there to partner with maybe Geneva Little League and Hobart William Smith.
Absolutely.
I'm not telling you how to do your job. I'm just saying those things are out there.
No, and that actually came out very clear in the community meeting we had at the complex, and in the discussion of amenities that some of the parents had seen at the other rinks where, there's tracks above the rink where you can exercise while your kid's doing that. I will say in the grant application for one of the grants that we had put in, that was a piece of it, is how do we partner with, we just received the AARP designation as a senior-friendly community. How do we tie that into what's happening there? We have gone after climate-smart communities. How do we tie sustainability into all of that? So I think you're right on track with that. It's just building from there and how we move recreation forward.
Excellent. I'm glad you brought that up. Every time I would hold a practice at Jefferson Avenue, the parents loved it. They would walk their babies around the track. The kids would go be at the playground. Like it was more than just sitting there watching a game. They enjoyed the space, and the space had the amenities for them to enjoy too. Had the infrastructure.
One keg short of perfect.
Microphone.
One keg short of perfect.
Just
And that
one
would
last
help
thing,
the
just so you
Go
know.
ahead, Council
Just-
Brennan.
Just so you know, one last thing about the baseball. I was at the Clark Street picnic on Sunday, and I can tell you that the two women that organized it are absolutely gaga about the idea of using the Clark Street baseball diamond for softball again, because they traveled to Newark to play for some reason, but they were all for it. So, to your point, there's a I think there's a seed there that can be grown upon.
Yeah, I was there myself. I guess I missed you. And like we said, we brought up park alienation, but if the neighbors want a park, damn it, give them a park. And that little party, I got there relatively early. I don't know how long it lasted, but I just saw folks having a jolly good time. If adults, what's that? Oh, I thought I heard something. Sorry.
clear my throat.
Oh,
Got a cold.
so yeah, I mean that's a start. If there is a baseball diamond there, what can be done to poke and again, it's going to take participation. Obviously, you show up and nobody's there, you got crickets, but that's a good point, and that was a good party. And I know the Parks Collective, is for keeping that a park and enhancing it. We'll see what they got in mind, but I think I'm with them on that.
Okay, great discussion. And we get together again tomorrow at 6 for executive session, 7 for our regular meetings. And I'll miss you guys in between now and then. Motion to adjourn. Counselor Petropoulos, second by Counselor Peeler. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Thank you very much.